Hello and welcome to the Alamocenary Moment. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Brad Hathcock. Welcome back to a normal session of our podcast.
We haven't done a newsy in a while.
No, we have not. There's a lot going on since January 1st, really.
Is it since January 1st?
Well, this year we did 2 separate movie podcasts. Well, one was sort of like TV shows and video games, and then we did our standard yearly movies, and this will be our first newsy, and we are quite literally at the end of January.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot has happened. We have a new president of the United States. He signed
A new old president. New old president, because he's an old man. He was president before, and now he's president again.
He is both of those. He's all of that.
Yes.
And unsurprisingly, his executive orders have been more, let's say, effective. It seems like he knows, his people know what they're doing now. The first time around, it wasn't like that.
If it's pissing off Democrats, it's effective.
So yeah,
they got a lot on their plate to complain about.
I mean, they don't really have anybody kind of in charge right now. That's what's weird, is like they're about as far into the wilderness as you can get politically.
Even Nancy Pelosi seems to kind of have just quieted down and like taken a back seat. Like, she's usually out in the media, like front and center when it comes to like Trump, and we haven't seen that yet.
Well, she kind of backed out of her leadership role, and I mean, she's running again. I mean, she still wants to be there, but honestly, I don't hear much from any of them unless it's from the confirmation hearings, which have been, again, take the cameras out of these rooms and you'd have a regular confirmation process, but instead they're just these weird yelling at people matches.
No, they're going for sound bites. I mean, like we just saw with like RFK, right? He apparently he said Lyme disease was a like military designed weapon, and there's an ounce of truth to it. And he also, I guess, said something about was it the Ashwagandhi Jews or something, and black people with COVID and or something, and
Ashkenazi?
Yeah, Ashkenazi Jew. I'm not sure how to say that, and I apologize. But apparently he was like, well, RFK was like, well, I'm citing an NIH study about that. So it's like, okay, well, here's some science, and then this is the party of believe the science, right? The Democrats, and they don't want to do that.
Probably the most telling part of that entire hearing was that he said basically, I was friends with all of you. Like Sheldon Whitehouse, you came to my wedding. Like, this is pretty wild, so.
It is pretty wild, and they just released that study about fluoride in the water, or fluoride in general can actually lower children's IQ points by almost 2 points. That's not nothing. A study came out a few years ago that the boomer generation lost on average, I think, like 4 or 5 IQ points because of leaded gas.
Of course, so lead is real. That's right. A proven thing.
So like this all happens, and in the study that came out, it was like the amount of fluoride that you would have to have is like twice the amount that you would get in water and everything like that. But you can't sit here and pretend that that's nothing. Okay, like that's what people are doing. They're like, well, it's like twice the amount. But that's not nothing. Maybe in little amounts you're still losing some brain capacity. You don't know. They don't. The study is what the study is. Like, they pick a control and study that. They don't study all of it.
Well, here's the thing about the fluoride, right? Like, people's teeth were rotting out of their heads for decades, millennia, and then we put fluoride in the water, and teeth quality got better. So, like, I mean, is there evidence for that?
Do you know that? Yes, but the fluoride in the water will actually only reduce your chance of getting cavities by 25%. It's not even 75%. It's not even 50%. It's not even 40%. It's only 25%.
So that's like your trade-off,
Brush
right?
your fucking teeth better.
Well, I mean, I guess
I haven't been to a dentist in Like, I hadn't gone to the dentist in almost a decade, and I went, and I had one eensy weensy cavity that they wouldn't even numb me for to fill, because he's like, you're not even going to feel it anyway because it's not deep enough. And I eat candy like it's going out of style. Okay.
That's because
But
you're drinking so much fluoride.
I brush and I floss my teeth and I use mouthwash constantly. Like, I take care of my teeth.
Yeah. Well, I
For the
don't know.
record, I don't drink fluoridated water, okay? I filter that all out.
I
I'm just
mean,
kidding. I don't think you can filter fluoride out of your water. I'm not sure.
I don't even know what fluoride really is, so I'm not going to talk about fluoride per se. I'm just going to talk about what they brought up. I don't know. I didn't bring it up. He brought it up. Um,
Remember when we used to inject people with mercury because it was in vaccines?
yeah. Do you
Remember
remember?
that? Remember
Uh,
that?
what was? Yeah.
Mercury will kill you just by touching it, by the way. It's poisonous.
Yes. There's a book about these women who worked in a factory in New York, and I think the tens, and they all their teeth rotted out because they were being exposed to radiation. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's real funny because the left is coming out and they're just hitting it hard. RFK, anti-vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, anti-vaxxer. He has said, I am not taking away anybody's vaccines. He even said in his hearing, I will not, like, he made some comment about McDonald's and processed food. He said, I am not taking it away from you. You have the option to choose what you want to do, but I can change the guidelines from which you should, like, follow, because the guidelines are dog shit.
Okay, can I just say, like, nothing qualifies him to say that. Like, he's not a doctor. He's a Kennedy, and the Kennedys going back to the beginning of time have been weird freaks. They're all weirdos. They won't go away. They won't leave public life.
Sure. So I will tell you that doctors actually don't take a lot of nutrition training. They aren't really qualified actually to tell you what you should and shouldn't be eating.
Well, what makes RFK the right person then to decide that too? I mean, he's as qualified as they are, I suppose.
Well, he's an environmental lawyer, so I mean that doesn't make him qualified for that. But since he is an environmentalist, if he sits here and tells you that climate change isn't real, is he qualified for that?
He says it is, but he'll put you. He said you should go to jail if you say that. If you deny it, or you want to take away free speech rights. Guy wants to take away vaccine, or no, patents. He wants to take away pharmaceutical patents. That's a
He should.
radical position. No, absolutely not. No,
Absolutely should.
no. Explain to me why that's okay to you.
So the way that these companies make a lot of money, right? And everybody wants to complain about how much money pharmaceutical companies make. Like the left, they want to complain about these pharmaceutical companies, but then turn around and act like they're the savior during like COVID and all this other stuff. It's a combination of things, right? They declare a patent on things. Other companies then can't make that same drug because of the patent issue, because they don't have access to it, right? Hold on.
Well, the thing about the patents is like when you make money from the patents for that 15-year period or whatever it is, all that money you're making from the patent is going into researching other drugs.
Yeah, there's a huge like R&D part of it as well, right? My aunt works for Pfizer. I know this. I've talked to her at length about this. There's a huge amount of R&D that goes into it, but they're doing that R&D regardless, okay? That combined with the fact that you are not allowed to sue a pharmaceutical company for vaccine injury, of which there are many. There's a whole like fucking journalistic website or whatever that's devoted to vaccine injuries.
But
You
I'm not
just
talking about vaccines.
It's anything. It's pharmaceuticals as a
I
whole.
but yeah, but
Pharmaceutical
I'm not talking about
companies,
vaccine.
they patent vaccines too.
I
They
know, and
they
I don't
patent
care.
everything.
I'm not. I'm
They
not
put
worried about
patents on
that.
everything.
Then take away the vaccines. But like, if you remove, you have to remember that like these big pharmaceutical companies in America are subsidizing medication for the
But
entire
here's the thing
world.
about making it cheaper, okay? You can start to make these drugs cheaper if you don't allow patents on them. You want to talk about bringing down the cost of healthcare? Instead of letting the government like do the healthcare, which obviously is horrible, you get rid of patents that will ultimately bring down the price. You also have to allow people to purchase drugs from Mexico, from Canada, from wherever if they want to, because
I'm good with
they
that.
they ultimately, maybe not Mexico, but Canada, they have like higher standards for making supplements and vaccines and all that other stuff that will help bring down the prices. They don't want that because we have protectionism here in America. We don't have actual free trade. So you get rid of, like, if you get rid of the protectionist bullshit, because we do that, that's why we don't allow Chinese EVs here, because they have better EVs than we have, but you have to protect American companies, right? So instead of letting the actual free market decide these things, we have what we have. We run up the price of pharmaceutical drugs and stuff like that because of patents and because of not being able to sue pharmaceutical companies. You have it because you can't purchase across different countries. Like, that's the way to help fix the healthcare system.
Okay,
Not have everybody pay for it, which is what Bernie Sanders, back to our conversation, was trying to get RFK to say, is like, should healthcare be a human right? And he's like, well, sort of, but like not really, because like if you're a smoker, you shouldn't be able to draw from the pool of healthcare because you're getting cancer and you're doing it to yourself.
I have so many problems with that argument. Like, you want let's say you did like socialized healthcare. You do, that's the whole point, is you cover the cost of other people's bad health decisions. That's the whole reason. So like, and also, can we just go back to the patents for 1 second? What's the point of a patent if you don't have patents anymore? Why do you have them at all then?
There isn't one. Don't have them.
For anything? For
Sure.
I mean, that doesn't
Do you
make any
understand
sense.
that there are people who create a business, right? Like, you see this on Shark Tank. They go to Shark Tank, they have a business, their business model sucks, but they have a patent on something, so nobody else can make it. So what the Shark Tank guys do, they're like, well, I want to buy your patent. I don't want to buy your business. I want to buy your patent. I'll buy your patent for $10 million, we'll say. And they're like, okay, because $10 million is more than they'll ever make. Their business is failing.
But they came
I.e.,
up
that's
with
why
it.
they're on Shark Tank.
It's their patent.
Sure, but somebody can just probably make it better.
Yeah, but that's not up
Or
to you
cheaper.
or
Or
RFK
cheaper.
Jr.
Imagine having cheap goods. Oh my God, what a
But
fucking travesty.
you don't patent shit. You patent everything. There's patents on Coca-Cola. There's
There's
patents on
fucking patents
whatever.
on everything. Sure. Don't you want Dr. Pepper's 23 fucking flavors, Aaron? Don't
Of
you want it?
course. It's one of
It's
my
patented.
favorites.
It's patented. It's secret. But if you had their 23 flavors, you could make Dr. Pepper at home. And you know how much you could make it for? Way less than fucking whatever $5 a bottle it costs now.
I didn't come up with it. That's the point.
You don't, but that's the point. You don't have to. There's other people inventing shit. You think people are going to stop inventing shit just because they don't have a patent? It's
Yes.
also actually somewhat difficult to get a
No,
patent. You have to
actually, yes.
file all this kind of shit. So there are people still inventing things that aren't patented.
You don't get to put all the work in, do all the education, come up with all this shit, patent it, and then have the government come in and go, we don't play by your rules anymore. These aren't the rules. You don't get to do that. You can't just have RFK come in into a private business and say, like,
You're taking the government out of it. You're
he is
literally
the
taking the
government.
government out of it.
Okay,
You're not inviting them in. You're taking them out of it.
but where does it stop? I mean, if you're just saying get rid of all patents, then why create anything?
Okay. So if a guy creates a cure for cancer and he patents it, and he's like, well, I don't want to give anybody this cure for cancer. I have a patent on it. And a pharmaceutical company goes and says, well, we'll give you $30 billion. And he goes, no.
Okay,
We're just not supposed to have a cure for cancer because he has a patent on it?
There's
Your counter
I
argument.
get your argument. I really do. But then but it's based on like a principle, right? Like, this is what we have. I don't see why RFK should be able to be the one who is going to be in charge of the biggest department in America, whatever, NIH, right? Like,
For the record, he does not control patents for anything. There's a whole separate department for that.
but
He doesn't hand out patents for that.
what he's advocating for is in my opinion, look, if you're going to do that, then you might as well go all the way. And then why do we have patents at all?
We
Your argument,
shouldn't.
but your argument
Because that was what we shouldn't.
But I think there should be patents. That's the thing, is I think there should be patents. You made the song, you own the song. You know, like there's things you own that you make.
There's not a patent on songs.
Okay, well, the American healthcare system, I'm like really getting sick of dumping on it because we basically solve like diabetes and things like that. You just remove that incentive completely, I think. I know what you're saying. You're saying they'll
We
do it
didn't
anyway.
really solve diabetes. Like,
it's better.
No, I mean, we can control it better, but if we solved diabetes, then why is like over 50% of the country pre-diabetic or diabetic?
I mean, like we have
because
like,
they're obese because they eat fucking processed foods, which he's trying to get out of processed foods. See, like, you just think he's fucking crazy. He's not crazy.
He's crazy.
He says crazy shit, sure. But like, he also has said again to all the people who think he's anti-vax that he will not take away your vaccines. What he simply says is that, okay, we used to give kids 10 vaccines, now we give them 96 vaccines, and nobody has ever studied whether or not giving kids 9 times the amount of vaccines that we had before is doing anything to them.
I mean, how many kids do you know have 72 shots, which is the number they throw out? I mean, are they counting 72 shots through your entire life? The flu shot? I mean, what are they counting?
I don't know.
These numbers don't mean anything.
Shots and vaccines.
I don't either, but like...
literally, my doctor, okay, who was from Canada, moved here because he said Canadian healthcare is dog shit. Moved here, becomes my doctor. He says, well, you're due for a flu vaccine. Do you want one? I said, no. I haven't gotten the flu in... I don't know, 20 years, and I also haven't gotten a flu vaccine in probably 20 years. He goes, well, no need to start now.
I don't get the flu vaccine. No need.
It's also not really a vaccine. In my opinion, a vaccine means you fucking don't get it, right?
Yeah, we should call it the flu
get
shot.
The flu.
Correct. We're not using the right words. We're not very smart on this, so we shouldn't pretend that we are.
I'm also not a doctor.
But I do think that that's a radical position. I think that they're asking him these questions because he took all these positions in the past. He's on the record with all this shit. You can go read all of it. He's got articles in Rolling Stone in like early 2000s, you know, about these vaccines. So like he's always been
But if things that he said or wrote about were wrong, you would be able to sue him, and nobody has.
The other thing is that he's
correct. You can sue somebody for that.
I don't know. I don't know.
They don't.
I don't know.
But they don't.
I don't know that. All I know is he's a lawyer, or he's pretends to have like a law firm.
He's a lawyer, and he says, especially about his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, he says, I wrote this book. I would be sued for writing a book about Anthony Fauci if there was any non-factual information in there, and he has not been sued. He's a lawyer. He knows he would be sued, right? And he has not.
I mean, he stands to make a lot of money.
Sure. Elizabeth Warren was like, will you commit to not taking on like a financial position against these pharmaceutical companies if you sue them? And he wouldn't directly come out and say no.
I mean, is that seems like something that should make him not eligible for the position then? I mean, that alone. There's like a laundry list of these things that are like weird about him.
But why? Why? We let Congress do insider trading, and it's legal.
You don't like it?
No, I don't like it. I'm not saying I like it.
Then what are we talking about?
If he's legally within his rights to do that, then why shouldn't he be allowed to do that? They insider trade.
Private citizen. He doesn't have to be this. He doesn't take this position. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be voted by the Senate for it. I mean. They should just vote him down. They should say no.
That's not going to happen.
I bet you that one of those two does. Either him or Tulsi goes down.
I would actually venture to guess that Tulsi Gabbard goes down before RFK.
I mean, all these people that came out of nowhere and they were so anti-RFK, and then he's on the right side now, so they're all like pro RFK, and everybody else who liked him don't like him now, and it's like that's what he does. He plays like every side. He's not an honest broker. He shouldn't be. I don't know. He shouldn't even be in that position.
He works for the government. Nobody's an honest broker in the government.
He's a Kennedy, man. Like that whole family going back
to
like
means
Teddy.
He's due to die tragically at some point in his life. Okay, like they all do.
And also, like his character flaws. Like he's a giant piece of shit. Like last year, he cheated on his wife, basically. Like
I never said he's not a piece of shit. For the record.
I don't think you should hold that position.
I would like that submitted for the record.
I think you want him in that spot.
I do.
I don't. I think he's not qualified. He shouldn't be near it.
Aaron, there are no actual qualifications for that job, by the way, other than like being an American citizen.
You're putting him in charge of the thing that has the most of the money in our government.
I don't care.
All
I
right.
literally don't care. Because his actual like thought on health, take vaccines out of it and all that stuff, his actual thoughts on like health and being healthy, and he's in better shape than, I don't know, 95% of Congress. I actually abide by like eating healthy and all that other stuff. Like I'm behind him on that. I've long said that we cannot have socialized medicine in this country because we have over 50% obesity. Like child obesity is running rampant. We're like all this stuff. I've long said we cannot have socialized medicine because there is no incentive for people to take care of themselves. That's what he wants to change.
Then he should
I
be like the
abide by
Surgeon
that.
General or something.
Let him do it all. I don't care.
All right.
I don't care.
All right. Well, I agree to disagree with you on him. I can't stand that guy, honestly.
What if in say 5 years time we've dramatically reduced obesity without Ozempic because that shit is toxic, and here the Biden administration wanted to cover that by Medicare, and it's literally causing kidney failure in people
I
and
mean, if you
causing like stomach ulcers, I think it is, and shit.
yeah, if
Like,
you're not obese, if you're not fat, then it's bad for you for sure.
no, even if you are fat and obese, it's bad for you. And they've also said that you essentially have to take it for life. So now they've got you by the balls, right?
So what?
They've got their hooks in you financially.
I mean, you don't
And
care. You
so
don't.
so yeah, I'm skinny, but my kidneys are fucking failing and I'm going to die.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I personally,
You like that trade-off?
if you don't care
or
about him
not?
being in charge of all that, then I don't care about that
I
either.
don't.
I
I
should.
don't.
I think people should be able to take whatever they want.
So do I.
All right. Well, you and I disagree with him then.
They should be able to take whatever you want. But what he's saying is he's not going to take anything from you.
You don't know
He's
that
simply,
because he says that, Brad.
sure, but that goes for anybody.
I know, but this
That goes
matters
for
more than
anybody.
it matters more when Pete Hegseth and him say things than it does when somebody for
Does it?
fucking
Does it?
I don't know. Just
Does
what
it?
is the Department of Homeland Security? What does that matter compared to him saying like I'm not going to do this, and then he just changes the entire pharmaceutical industry
I
because
don't
he has
know.
a radical perspective?
What does the Department of Secretary of Defense even do? What does that
Well,
guy even do? If you read the book Nuclear War like I did, which you won't, because you don't want to believe that North Korea has nukes, that's on you.
oh my god.
Like, then he's part of the succession plan. I think he's like third in line, something like that.
No, that's the House Speaker. But regardless, fine. I'm gonna read that book, by the way, just so you know.
I'll send it to you.
I'll get the. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll buy
send
it
it to
outright.
you.
How much is it?
I can send it to you for free. I don't know.
Okay.
For someone who likes physical media for everything else, you sure hate actually physically reading a book.
I have so many of them. I don't know what you're talking about. I have like them all over the place. I keep them in each of my cars. I don't know if why is that? Why do you think I don't read the books? I've got a book with a paper book in every one of my cars, so when I'm somewhere I have a book with me.
Because you do nothing but talk about listening to audiobooks.
I listen to them at night.
When you're sleeping?
Sometimes, yeah. I don't
Moving
know.
on.
It's
Next topic.
It makes the dreams interesting.
Where were we?
Okay, so the couple of the confirmations went through. Department of Transportation. That guy showed up to an emergency last night when a plane crashed into a helicopter in DC. So he's already more interested in his job than Pete Buttigieg ever was.
It's so funny because people are already on the blame Trump train for that, which I know you said specifically about this. I'm okay with blaming the guy who's in charge now. You kind of can't, right?
I was joking, half joking when I said that, but what I was saying was when you send out an email to every single person in the FAA and you say like, "Would you like to resign?" That doesn't exactly like make things better. So like, I'm not saying that was like what happened here, but the guy who was running that air traffic control tower that night, last night, you know, he got that email.
Sure. But that doesn't really matter. You still went to work, didn't you? So you got to do your job. The problem is that job is very stressful, very difficult. I don't necessarily want to say they're underpaid because I'm pretty sure they start at like six figures. But it's because they work long hours and they're drastically understaffed. This is across the board in the United States. It could have happened anywhere. But knowing that, the Biden administration allowed for more flights to come in that airport.
So,
well, they had a warning that they shouldn't have done more flights because it put everybody at higher risk for a crash. Lo and behold, we have a crash. People are saying, oh, well, Trump sent out the email or he's like instituted a hiring freeze. You cannot, you will not, within 10 days, hire, train, and have somebody do that job. You will not. It's
also, the hiring freeze isn't for like that, I don't think. I think that would be considered like national security, probably.
Something like that, yeah. It's not an across-the-board hiring freeze, which people don't understand. But people just want to sit here and blame Trump. Trump derangement syndrome is real. People freak out about every little thing he does. You know, he just deported like 1,200 illegals, including gang members. They busted like a party for like, I don't know, 50 like Venezuelan gang members. And he was like, see ya.
I don't have a problem deporting, you know, illegal immigrants who are criminals, but like I said, like I've been telling you, there's an optics thing going on. When you start...
But...
Okay, go ahead.
Would you say that if you cross the border illegally, that makes you a criminal?
You broke the law, yes.
Then correct. So anyone who crosses the border illegally is a criminal. So they should be deported. That is what the Trump administration is doing. His press secretary even said as much because they tried to do a gotcha and was like, out of the 1,100, 566 were nonviolent like offenders, which you should also be alarmed that the other 500 or so were violent criminals, right?
Yeah.
But she said, well, it doesn't matter. If you cross the border illegally, you have broken the law, you are now a criminal. And under his newest executive order, where if you even have like a minor charge like burglary or something like that, that they can still deport you, Democrats are freaking out about that. So you want to allow burglars in and everything else.
Well, the past 4 years would indicate yes.
That's okay, right?
But when it's all fun and games when you're sending like tatted up gang members back to Colombia, it's a whole other thing when you've got like a mother and her two kids and you're like, you're also a criminal. Like that's where you get like to the optics thing. Like, I don't know, at some point you're going to push it too far and then, I don't know, the public will turn on you or something.
Sure.
That's not where my decision.
I think that's where he was trying to go with that whole birthright citizenship thing, which I vehemently disagree with. Like, it's in the Constitution. You can't just change the Constitution with an executive order.
Joe Biden did it.
Of course, he did that by a tweet.
Yeah,
not even an executive order. But that's going to get shot down immediately.
Yeah, but that's taxpayer money being wasted. Like, we're going to save all this money by like making a stupid executive order that has to go through the courts, and that just spends money. And it's like, it's sort of antithetical to the whole like Doge thing, where it's like we're going to reduce and make efficiency, and it's like the guy who's in charge is signing executive orders, and like 3 or 4 of them are like unconstitutional, or they're going to get shot down in the courts. I agree. Don't believe it.
I think it's just funny to watch people defend big government at this point. Like, making smaller government shouldn't inherently be a bad thing. We have like $35 trillion in debt. something like that. The U.S. credit rating actually got downgraded again. Don't know if people even know that, but it got downgraded again, and we can't really afford even the interest payments on the debt that we have. So that's bad for all of you who don't understand that. That is bad. And so sitting here defending getting rid of like useless employees is a waste of your time. It's a waste of your time.
But I would also say that if you want to fix that problem, you have to do it you have to strategically pick where you're going to do it. If you do it just across the board, which is what they did,
Sure.
it's not going to work. That email was ridiculous.
Sure, but that email isn't really going to do anything. It's basically just like saying, well, you can resign via this email, but nobody's even sure if it was real because it came from like an external source or whatever.
It's real. They confirmed it.
So,
I mean, all these agencies basically said like, this is a real email. By the way, this is how it identified like actual scams and spam. And so it's like, we know it happened. We know Elon Musk took a bunch of servers into the OPM, set them up, and then created that email account, which looks extremely sketchy,
yeah,
to say the least.
Well, it's Elon Musk.
It's that's why it doesn't work, because he doesn't know how government works. He's promising via this email that you'll get paid through September 30th, and we don't have a budget past like March or April.
Yeah, I think it was like 6 months.
They can't promise you that 8 months of pay when they don't have a budget for after the next 4 or 3 or 2. That's why like it's frustrating to watch them try to do this, because it's like I said, you should do it. You should be targeted. You should go to the IRS and say, okay, what do we have here, and go through it, or go to these other agencies around DC. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to get DC into these office buildings, but it doesn't apply across the entire world. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. We'll see what Musk does, because I mean, I will say it's been a very chaotic first 2 weeks.
They always
Trump
are.
Presidency.
Yeah, they always are, and it's been pretty chaotic, but it's also been efficient. But Elon Musk is on borrowed time, dude. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how long this like honeymoon period lasts between him and Trump.
I give it less than a year. I mean, we saw in the last Trump presidency turnover like no other. They had trouble filling, I think, like 130,000 like actual government jobs with like, real consequences, I think.
I mean, I'm not saying like a hiring freeze is bad, by the way. Like a hiring freeze is something we've done every 10 years, basically. Like 2009, 2000, I think Clinton did it. Like, they do that, and it does eliminate those jobs, and then the jobs that are like that people lose, they end up going and filling these other jobs that are unfilled. So it does like reduce it over time, but at the same time, you're asking all these people to go and find a place to sit, and so you've got people showing up in conference rooms and hallways. It's going to spend you have to spend money if you're gonna staff places that you need staffed. That's why I say like it's not really a cost savings. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is at the end.
I would be interested to see how much cost savings there are.
Like let's say you have to like fix the infrastructure of a building. You have to make sure you can have enough people on the network to make it work, because everybody's going to be online, and then you have to figure out how to make that work, and that's like one building and one agency in DC.
But see, here that shouldn't be, right? If anything, the networks should have gotten better, because you had to do more in order to let people work remotely. And so your infrastructure should already be there.
But the VPNs are different
from a technical perspective. But you should already have like all the server space, everything that you needed, because you had it when everybody was in the office prior to COVID. And then with COVID, you sent everybody home. So you had to increase your infrastructure in order to allow them to work remotely. So now bringing them back actually would ultimately probably be a reduction in infrastructure, because you don't need the VPN structures anymore.
I don't know it for a fact. I'm just speculating
Oh, I
about.
don't either.
Yeah, I mean these are things that could be an issue for. Let's say you have this old rundown building somewhere, and you just bring all these people back in, and then I don't know. Does the IT support it? I don't
Right.
know.
Well, I
So.
mean, at my former job, right? Like they sent us home during COVID. They renovated the building. They got rid of my desk. I had a cubicle and everything. They got rid of it and made it what they called hoteling space. So it was like
Mhm.
open floor plan, like all this other shit, right?
Like hot desks
Well,
and shit.
right. Then if you bring everybody back, all the shit that you just did, you have to undo to
Yes.
make sure that people have places to sit. So it,
You got to buy cubicles. You got to buy
right.
office furniture. You got to buy laptops. You got to buy
Because you didn't just
displays.
store it somewhere for the last 5 years. Like you
No,
just,
it probably just went away. So these are just questions I have because, you. I just don't know if it's going to come out in the end. If it's going to be like a wash or whatever.
yeah, I agree.
But I will be interested to see. We will probably not podcast before the 10th of no, maybe we will before the 10th of February, which I think is the day after the Super Bowl, and that's when everybody has to be back.
Might be the day of the 10th. I coming home February 9th from vacation.
Okay, so by then,
Literally just in time to watch the Super Bowl.
yeah, which I wouldn't, I don't think I'm gonna watch it. I don't think I'm very, ugh. But yeah, so we'll find out how that all works. I don't think people realize that like it's not just Washington D.C. It's like all over the world. We have people that are like at facilities in Japan and Saudi Arabia, and they all got the same exact guidance that the people in DC got.
Right. It's not
So
just that too. Like for a regular company, right? Like they let people go to work from home during COVID, and they were like, we're not going back to working like we used to, and so these people moved to like cheaper states to live and still making like the same salary, and then they're trying to make them move back. Like that's not right. Like what if I sold my house? I can't unsell it.
for those people, I don't know what to say because they are basically getting fucked in this. But like a lot of people online on X would say fuck them. Like a lot of people do believe that like federal employees, you know, that they have a second job, or they do things with like childcare, and maybe that's not like a taxpayer benefit. So there's like reasons for the public to be skeptical of it as well, I would say.
Well, I think the public should be skeptical of everything the government does. The problem is most people aren't.
I guess not. So what else? What other executive orders were there that you thought were like kind of newsworthy?
Well, he two genders now. He executive ordered the number of genders that we're allowed to have in the U.S. here.
It would appear that happened quick because I think like people's documentation is already like updated. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
true or not, but
I'm not sure because I think you'd have to address like passports, and well, we all know that's a fucking nightmare getting a passport and all. But
I guess there were 72 genders or something. Why is everything 72? I don't know. But
then he also just executive ordered no gender affirming care for minors, and I
ugh.
100% believe in that.
Well, I
Do
mean,
not.
I've read everything from Abigail Schreier, who was the only person speaking out about this like 5 years ago. Um, so, and she was the only one who had the balls to do it. Her and like J.K. Rowling, basically. Um, so that was interesting. I don't know if I want to touch it on here. It's like, ugh, it's such a.
We've kind of talked about it before. Again, if you are trans, I have no problem with that, but they should not be doing that to minors. Like, remember, like genital mutilation was like such a big issue back in like the Disney.
Well,
That is what you're doing.
yeah, I mean that was.
Genital mutilation,
They
and
still
just
do that in Africa.
if you want to do that shit to yourself as an adult, 18, consenting adult, fine. Under 18, no go. I draw the line at that. You gotta protect the kids. I don't even have kids, but you gotta protect the kids, and that's the plan.
Well, it has a lot in common with lobotomies, right? Like that was considered a regular thing. One of the Kennedys lobotomized their sister back in the day, so that was a thing. And we look back on that now and think, "Oh my goodness, what were we doing?"
Right.
So perhaps we'll feel the same way about this in regards to children specifically. Um, I guess probably puberty blockers are the one that's like kind of like a I don't know, man. I don't know about
See,
that.
but you got to shut that shit down. You're like chemically castrating people by doing shit like that. Um, I I actually believe one of the drugs that they were giving people was given to rapists to chemically castrate them.
I think that's the same thing that happened to Alan Turing when he made the Enigma code or cracked it or whatever. After World War II, they did that to him.
Right. So I, again, that was just one that popped up. One that I actually do believe in. I just think that that's detrimental to the future of America, I guess, if you want to say it that way. But it's hard to tell, man, because it was like so many. Did 200 in the first 48 hours.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I
By
think
the
he
way,
undid 75 Biden executive orders.
yeah, the executive order power is just like the pardon power, which we talked about a while ago. All that needs to be reformed, probably. Like this is getting out of hand, I think.
The thing is that what's funny is like when Trump was leaving office the first time and talking about pardons, everyone was like, he's going to pardon his family, his kids, all sorts of stuff for their crimes, this, that, and the other thing. And that never happened, right? So like what the media was telling you was a complete fabrication. It never happened. And you had people like Adam Schiff, you had Chuck Schumer, like all these motherfuckers going, he's going to do this and it shouldn't be legal. You can't do that. And then Biden went ahead and did it. And they're all like, well, yeah, but that's because like Trump's going to prosecute them. And it's like, okay, even if he tries, like if you say he doesn't have a case, let him try.
Well,
Let him
apparently,
try. And they're like, well, we're trying to save them money for prosecutorial costs. That's not your business.
well, we just spent 4 years doing that.
Right. To him. You just did that to him. One of the other ones I like was stripping clearances and protection details from people like fucking John Bolton and General Milley. Fuck yeah.
I don't have any issue with the Millie one because I don't think anybody likes him. These other guys that worked for Trump, the reason why they had the security detail in the first place is because they worked for him. They were in the administration, and then they killed Soleimani, and then Iran was like, "Well, we're going to kill you now," and they want to go
I was
after
gonna
all
say
these guys.
Iranian hit list, baby. Here we go. They tried to
So,
get Trump.
I'm kind of like torn on some of these guys because they were doing what they were told.
Pay for it yourself, bitch. I guarantee you John Bolton's got money.
Probably, yeah. No, yeah, he does. Yeah, that's no question. But it still, nonetheless, you understand where I'm coming from. That like they carried out the orders of the president at the time. Like I don't know.
Sure. But and I will say, one of the things I disagree with, obviously, with Trump is like the loyalist position, right? Like if you're a loyalist to Donald Trump, you get your day in the sun, like in the government. I disagree with that. I think that you ultimately should hire some people that you disagree with, but he has done that. He's trying to get RFK through. He's trying to get Tulsi Gabbard through, though they are not inherently loyalists to him. They were detractors of his for a very long time. JD Vance was a detractor of his. And sure, JD Vance kind of more flip-flopped on things, right? But RFK was like, well, at least he like listens to me when I like talk about things, and he's like, oh, okay. The one thing that's been said about Trump, which I agree with, is he actually listens to all sides really of an argument, and then is kind of like, I like that or I like that, and kind of like picks what he thinks is true, which that's all anyone can really do out of a conversation, right? Like if you, me, and like two other people are having a conversation all about the same thing and all have different viewpoints, and you're all trying to make your viewpoint, I have to pick which one that I think closely aligns to with maybe what I think. Apparently, that is what Trump does. So
It's different for sure. I mean, and we've, these last 4 years have been kind of informative on what it looks like when you just put things down in front of a president and like has him like hold his hand and like have him sign it, and then it's like, oh, you pardoned a guy who killed 2 kids or whatever. Like, did you not vet any of these guys? Like, that's the kind of stuff where like,
I think one of the biggest things that I want to see that I think we might get is an actual investigation into the last like couple years of Biden's presidency,
you have to at
where
some
he
point.
was very clearly diminished, and you've seen all the articles come out in reputable papers about basically that there's like 3 people that are actually running the government in place of the president and everything. Okay, this is the guy with the nuclear codes, and he's a fucking mush brain and doesn't know his ass from last Tuesday, and we're just letting him run the country. There was a mass cover up that is well known, and that needs to be investigated. It is not a matter um, of just kind of like getting back at the government or whatever, or getting back at that administration. It's literally a national security issue that is
Yeah,
now
yeah.
over, but needs to be investigated.
Well, as I brought up before, Woodrow Wilson was the reason why the 25th Amendment exists, because Edith Wilson was running the the executive branch while he was on his deathbed. He was literally dying. He was incapacitated, and she was not an elected official. So we said like we can't do that again. Well, now I don't know if we could do this again. And there were the same concerns when Reagan left. Like Reagan started experiencing dementia late in his presidency, and people had questions about that. So yeah, we should know as citizens what, because I'm going to presume that the Biden situation was worse than we even know today.
I
It
guarantee it
sounds
was.
it's more and more leading to the thing that like, yeah, it's been bad for about 3 or maybe even 4 years. Oh, I lost my headset.
Right. So like basically his entire presidency could have been a sham. But now
Perhaps.
I guess they're coming, like I think even Kamala Harris came out and said, I thought I heard this somewhere, that she came out and said, well, if Biden stayed in, he probably would have beat Trump. What?
Well,
You can't say that and can't think that. You were the de facto nominee.
Biden's one of his last things he said was like, I'm pretty sure that I could have beaten Trump, and so could have Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
It's like,
tell that to the debate that you had where your brain just shut down.
yeah, we need to know what happened there for sure.
Yeah, we have to see that investigation, and quite frankly, anybody who was involved in said cover up should go to prison. They won't, but they should.
I don't even know if like that is like relevant anymore. It'd be more just like a fact finding mission, like just to get to the bottom of it.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. It happened in the past. It's not relevant, right? There's zero fucking consequences for people in government. That needs to end.
Well, you're talking about people in the administration.
I'm talking about anybody in government. All of this bullshit that they talk about, nobody is above the law, that is a lie. They're all above the law. Like this rule of law shit is bullshit. They exempt themselves from things like Obamacare, like where you were forced to buy insurance or pay a penalty. Okay? They were exempt from that. Like,
Yes.
You can't have that. So you're sitting here saying that you're above the law. You're not. That shit needs to stop. If you committed a crime and you're in government, you should go to fucking prison. You know why? Because if you don't, you have a 2-tier justice system like we currently fucking have. And it's not supposed to be that way. And everybody likes to say that we don't have a 2-tier justice system. That's a lie. It's a blatant lie, because if you work for the government, you don't go to prison unless you're maybe Bob Menendez, who probably gonna get a commuted sentence or
Well,
something.
I was gonna say that was like kind of surprising. He had got a 12-year sentence, a sitting senator.
But it doesn't happen enough. Even if it does happen, it doesn't happen enough. There's virtually no consequences for these people to do what they do, and it's insane.
I want to say that, like, I think we're referring to like political people who are elected, and then they bring in people, and those are the people who do the cover-ups. So like the people who are literally sitting down the hall in the White House were probably doing that. I don't know if that's a crime or not. If they were just saying like Joe Biden doesn't know where he is today, I don't know if that's a crime or not.
It has to be. This is again, it was a national security issue. This is not a small thing.
I think it's one of the
I
biggest
virtually
things.
guarantee it's going to get swept under the rug because nothing did happen. But of course, now Vox releases like some article about we're in a third nuclear age, right? So there was the Cold War, then there was like the post-Soviet collapse, and now we're in like a third nuclear age. And right after this like blurb, they go, and Trump has the keys to the football, and it's
Yeah.
like nothing happened last time.
They miss this though, Brad. They really do. They miss saying
Oh
like,
my god,
we're all fucked now.
the media has been just running rampant, dude.
And less relevant than ever as well.
Yes, but that's what I love. The new press secretary, I must say, she's killing
Carolyn Leavitt.
She reiterated a claim that we spent $50 million on condoms for Gaza, which apparently is false, but I don't know. People are calling it a conspiracy theory. That's a little thin, in my opinion, for a conspiracy theory. We spent more money on less shit, in my opinion, from the government, but she cleared out her entire press secretary seats for like her staff and stuff to invite in like influencers and like social media people and stuff like that for news, instead of just giving it to like more people. But also Biden revoked like 433 press passes or something like that.
That was
And she's
press
going
freedom,
to reinstate
baby.
all of them.
So, that's where like the rhetoric doesn't meet the actual actions, right? Because like they're like, oh, they hate the press, and they're like, yeah, but they're like adding access. I don't like. How are you going to argue that anymore? I don't think you can.
No, arguably you're going to get the most press freedom that you've ever had. But shockingly, she's only 27 years old, which
that's surprising.
But so far, she seemed to have acquitted herself very well. So
I mean, we went from probably the worst press secretary in modern times. I mean, I'm too young to know what the old ones were like. They were probably pretty professional and buttoned up.
Sean Spicer was pretty bad, man.
Um,
But I have to admit, it seems like it would be a very difficult job to be Trump's press secretary, because he's always tweeting, he's always on. Like, I don't even think this dude sleeps. So I don't know, man. It's got to be a tough job.
I would say it was probably tough for the other two before her, because they were covering, because they had nothing. Like, because Biden wasn't there at all. Like, he wasn't present. So then every day they're like coming out and they're just saying, well, he does a lot of backflips when we're private, so we're good here. And it's like
McEnany seemed to be able to kind of like rein it in a little bit. Like, she was very much no nonsense, like towards the end of Trump's presidency the last time.
Well, and feel free to shit all over me for saying it again, but Jen Psaki was a good press secretary. I know you don't like her, and you think I'm insane for saying that, but
she's definitely better than Karine Jean-Pierre, which I think that's the first time I've actually gotten that right in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it doesn't get much worse than that. And that woman brought in, these giant binders, and she was like, let me flip to the page. Let me see what we think about this. And
they were all probably just like hand-drawn crayon pictures from Joe Biden.
I mean,
to be fair,
he drew a teddy bear. And yeah, she comes in and she's got like a piece of paper.
She just has to like look at the binder and see the teddy bear and be like, we're saving bears today.
Yeah, we saved the bears. And And also, by the way, everybody's going to forget this because we've already moved way past this. But everything that was difficult to talk about, John Kirby addressed it. He was always
Yes.
there for the tough conversations.
Of
So
course.
he was kind of the real press secretary in a way.
He got shafted.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't have a problem with John Kirby.
He was communicating a message that he did his best to communicate.
Yeah, he just kind of did it.
Yeah, he's interesting. I would hope he would come out and do a little more. He seems like somebody who would actually come out and like spill the tea a little bit, and I hope he does.
No, he's gonna write a book. Karine Jean-Pierre, worst press secretary.
I mean, really, I would love to know what their thoughts were for her, because she was never asked to quit, and she was awful at her job.
The truth behind KJP.
Yeah,
By John Kirby.
I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it'd probably be him. He seems like an honest broker. But a lot of these guys came out of the Trump administration, and they all wrote their books too. And H.R. McMaster was recently interviewed by somebody at the Free Press, and that was an interesting conversation. He was like, even though Trump kind of like railroaded him, like he's kind of like, what I did was I just presented options to Trump, and Trump would hand me a letter and say like, send this to Putin, and then he'd go, okay, and he'd stick it in a cubbyhole, and then he'd be like, sir, I didn't send that thing you asked me to do yesterday, and he'd be like, oh, moving on. So I mean, he was like kind of like a gatekeeper in that way as well. So, but yeah,
do you feel? I'll ask the question, that this administration feels different than the first time.
It's 100% different.
Yeah, there are a lot of people saying that it's different. Do you feel that it's different?
There's way more competent people in place, especially at Secretary of State with Marco Rubio. His first time around, he had Rex Tillerson, who was just a dope. He had no experience. He was the CEO of an oil company. He shouldn't be Secretary of State. Now they got Marco Rubio, who, I mean, very clearly knows everything about his job going into it. He's fully qualified for it. So
one of the things I see people complaining, right, is, and they're obviously all Democrats, that they keep posting this stupid thing, like, if you're a woman or LGBTQ or black or whatever, like, there's no, like, something in here in America for you, right? Kash Patel's Indian. Trump has the very first ever chief of staff that's a woman. He has a woman press secretary. He obviously is trying to get Tulsi Gabbard in there.
Marco Rubio's
also
Cuban.
A person of color. Marco Rubio's Cuban. I believe the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, I think is his name, is gay.
Yeah.
And like they're sitting here trying to make him out to be some like xenophobic person or whatever, and it's like, look at what he's actually doing, though.
I don't think people care. People are not listening to the mainstream media anymore like we are. I think they're tuning him out. I don't know if that's going to work.
I do the mainstream media thing because I like to watch people freak out. And then I just assume that everything that they wrote is probably a lie.
That's what we do here. Yeah.
We just then like I form my own opinion on it. But it's just because like that's been the norm for the last, I don't know, decade plus, that the media just lies to you. So
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, like, the last 4 years was full on gaslighting, and now they've kind of come back with this like, Trump says this, and then they put in without evidence, right? That without evidence line was like all through the first 4 years of his first term. And I don't know if the public's going to buy that anymore.
I don't know. So like, it's weird because I actually saw something the other day that Trump had a 52% approval rating through his first week. But then I'm seeing stuff today that it's like, he has the lowest approval ratings ever. And it's like, well, everybody said that until Biden got in office, and then he had the lowest approval ratings ever. But it's like, especially with the deportation stuff, it's like 52% of Americans are like, good job, get them the fuck out of here.
The media is totally out of step with the American people on that.
What's funny is what Republicans are doing now in regards to illegal immigration, and they're like, well, you're going to arrest all of the people who pick our crops.
Oh, I hate that the most.
They take less money to pick our crops. Okay, so you're all sitting here fighting to increase the federal minimum wage, but you're okay with paying illegal immigrants less money because you don't think Americans will do the job.
You get
And
yeah.
that's what Republicans are doing. They're like, so you are okay with I believe they're just throwing it out there with basically saying you're okay with slave labor then. Because like you don't want these people to make a good wage. You just want them to do the job.
This is the the curtain gets pulled back when you see the white liberal female on CNN who says, and this is what she said, not my words. You know, a lot of women around the country are going to be really upset when they have to pay more for their smoothies because the berries aren't getting picked. That's how they view immigrants. They think of them as like your housekeeper in LA. They really don't. Yep. They don't think of them as like capable individuals who could do more than that. So that's where they give the game away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's that like light racism that they tend to do. Funny thing, I want to bring into it because we brought up California essentially, right? Trump went to California.
He did.
To see LA, and the mayor there just completely bent the knee, and because he like railroaded her, and she was like, well, you know, we're gonna get people in to like do the thing, and he's like, it's gonna take months. These people need it now, because I think they were like preventing them from cleaning up their own like housing sites.
They weren't allowed to go there. Yes.
Right. They weren't allowed to go there. So he's like, well, they want to do it now. If he can have it cleaned up in 24 hours, why wouldn't you let him do it?
And then they come up with this thing like, oh, well, we're going to expedite and do the hazardous removal, blah, blah, blah.
Right. So here's the thing. Because Gavin Newsom is like, we're going to cut the red tape and let these people rebuild, right? If you're cutting the red tape for regulations, you didn't fucking need them in the first place, you idiot.
This is
So just cut the regulation.
As a lifelong Californian, I could tell you, like, it's infuriating when they go like, man, we got to get rid of this red tape. And it's like, why was it there in the first place, man?
Bill Maher said it. He was like, you need 3 permits to put a new garage door on your house. And he's
it's true.
That's ridiculous. He's like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Why would I do that?
You can't do it yourself. You can't clear the land around your house by yourself, or you don't have the permits to destroy the plant that can't be destroyed, until it's gone in a fire, which it is now. Stuff like that. So
I gotta say, I'm real excited for Bill Maher 2.0 this year. Like, he's just said, I'm not gonna let Trump break my brain like I did last time.
I watched his stand-up special last night, his new one, and he did say that in the special too.
I won't watch the stand-up special. Political comedy is funny. It is just done. I don't care for it, and that's just all he has anymore because of his shows.
It's just a 50-minute long monologue.
I think his show is funny and everything. But his stand-up, I'm done with it. But I just love that he's like, I'm not going to let him break my brain. And then you see, I think the first 2 episodes of his show from this year, kudos to him, because he doesn't allow that to happen. He's like, I disagree with this, but like, I'm not exactly wrong. And then, like even the Daily Show, they like to shit on Trump. He fired like all those inspector generals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were like freaking out, and he was allowed to, like, under the law, he was allowed to fire them. And they were like, and Jon Stewart was like, wait, so you're freaking out about the thing that he's allowed to do? And he's like, how are those generals going to get inspected? And like, just messing around, right? But it's like the media wants to freak out about everything that he's doing, even if it's completely legal and the right thing to do. It's just, that's what we're going to see. 4 more years of this.
It's only week 2. Let's switch to your state really quick, because your senator seems to be on a tear lately, Mr. John Fetterman. You want to talk about him a little bit?
Man, he's just the most rational person that's in government right now. I truly feel like I have to believe that. Like,
he's very common sense.
He dresses like an ogre, but everybody freaked out because he went down to Mar-a-Lago, and he was like, well, this is what we have to do when we work for the government. Like, we have to work with each other. We have to reach across the aisle, like all this stuff. And it's like the most common sense shit that you could think of. And people hate him for it.
They will hate anybody, just like with the Republicans. If you were in alignment with Biden on any issue, or you approve one of his appointees, you were a rhino. So I guess these are dinos. These are Democrats in some clothing, whatever.
There was some rumor going about that a Democrat was about to like switch parties.
It was a rumor, but
something like that. It hasn't
happened. Probably him. If it's anybody, it's probably him.
It could be. It could be. If you look at the state of Pennsylvania, the rural areas are typically red, and then the cities are blue.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from Braddock, which is a rural area, pretty, steel town, right, and coal. So the industry there has been not good forever. It's not a great town. Those areas are typically Republican. Those like really small town areas.
Kind of makes you wonder what his long-term thinking is, because Kyrsten Sinema had a similar sort of change of heart, where she was a Democrat and then she switched to independent, and they kicked her ass out of the state. She lost. She's now on a board of directors somewhere at a pharmaceutical company, I think. So that's how this goes.
Figure.
But Fetterman may be planning something for down the road. I don't know. I mean, whatever happened to him, I don't know what happened to him. But like when he was on Bill Maher, he was like,
well, he had a stroke.
He had a stroke. He was
learned his lesson, I guess.
And we were all sitting here on this podcast going like, oh my God, this guy can't serve as the senator. Like he could barely. He said goodnight, everybody, when he opened his debate with what's his face,
Dr. Oz.
Yeah, and we were like, oh man, this guy's cooked. And
you want to know what he's thinking? Ask his iPad. I don't know.
Yeah, but now the guy seems rational. He's all there. He's definitely a thought-provoking individual who doesn't go along his party lines. I don't know how his colleagues feel about that. Didn't work out for Kyrsten Sinema, but maybe it'll work out for him.
Maybe. I don't
know. This has flown by.
It has. I have one quick bit for you. I want to get your thoughts on some interesting articles that I have found.
Sure.
That you may or may not see, because you probably don't read the news to the depth that I do.
We'll see.
I get down in the weeds there with some.
I subscribe to a lot of newsletters, sir.
Queensland man attacked by a massive kangaroo, estimated to be 2 meters tall and weigh 100 kilograms. Now, I can't do that math. I don't use kilograms and I don't use meters. I would imagine it's about 6 foot 225. Just saying.
That's wild.
So, this man in his 50s is very lucky to be alive after he was attacked by a massive kangaroo while walking to his car, having suffered hip injuries and wounds to his arms and chest. The man would have bled to death had his next-door neighbor not been home to assist him with the aftermath. So there was 2 kangaroos, one female, one male. The female kangaroo fled before, what the guy said, the other bastard turned around and attacked him.
In an Australian accent, that's very funny.
He said it made a hell of a mess of this poor man and damaged him badly.
Did the kangaroo bite him? Like, how was he bleeding?
See, that's what I was like trying to see.
I don't think kangaroos
really
bite.
I think it kick.
Punch and kick, yeah.
Yeah, they punch and kick. But he said the bastard wasn't provoked. I've been out here 13, 14 years. I've never seen a problem out here. And he said, I spent 20 years in the army, for instance, in all sorts of conditions, and I've never, ever seen a roo attack someone before.
You know what? You said you wanted my thoughts on these stories. You want to hear my thoughts on this one?
I do.
That's very kangarooed.
I like it.
On to the next one. You got 3, right?
Yeah. Bosses are firing Gen Z grads just months after hiring them.
I heard about this one.
What they say needs to change. So after complaining for the better part of 2 years that Gen Z grads are difficult to work with, Bosses are no longer all talk, no action. Now they're rapidly firing young workers who aren't up to scratch just months after hiring them. So 6 in 10 employers say they have already sacked some of the Gen Z workers that they hired fresh out of college.
That's sad for the Gen Z generation.
Yes, but so here's kind of why, right? Employers gripe with young people today is their lack of motivation or initiative. 50% of leaders surveyed cited that the reason why things didn't work out with their new hire. Bosses also pointed to Gen Z being unprofessional, unorganized, and having poor communication skills as their top reasons to having sacked the grads. Leaders say they've struggled with the latest generation's tangible challenges, including being late to work and meetings, not wearing office-appropriate clothing, and using language appropriate for the workplace.
That's me.
So now more than half of hiring managers have come to the conclusion that college grads are unprepared for the world of work. Meanwhile, over 20% say they can't even handle the workload.
This is not surprising information. What's surprising is that they're finally taking authority over it. For the longest time, they were treating the Gen Z people like they were in charge, and they were scared. And it seems like that turned.
So do we want to keep federally funding universities? No? Thought so.
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Thank you.
They can afford it with their endowments. They don't need federal funding. But I will say that, like, there was a study that came out recently, I think it was this week, that said that I think, I don't know what the stat was, but it's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 kids at the age of, or like maybe like 5th grade, can't read. They can't read.
Yeah. So I had this conversation actually with someone, and I did not go to a great high school. My high school was like 483rd in the state for anything, like overall, in the state of Pennsylvania. They were 18th in diversity, by the way. And just not a good school, not well funded. I just saw something on TikTok that it was like number 6 on the top 15 most ghetto schools in the state. So there's that. But basically, like, we had riots and fights and like all this other stuff at school, and it's just a poor education. And apparently they are seeing kids in high school that can't even sign their own name because they don't know what cursive is. And that my high school currently, I think, has about a 45% reading proficiency.
Man.
Yeah. It's bad.
And it might be because of what you just said, the aforementioned TikTok, where maybe in the future you don't need to sign your name or you don't need to do something because AI can do that. But when you lack the very fundamentals of being a human being in a society, that's pretty scary, because you got to be able to drive, which means you have to read what a stop sign is. You have to like read maps. You have to like, I don't know how these people, this generation, this is where we get to be old men now, and complain about them. I don't
get
know
off my lawn.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're gonna do. But if you can't read and you're in the 5th or 6th grade, that's an alarming statistic. And by the way, that all goes back to COVID as well. So
here's the next article. NAEP scores show disheartening trends for the lowest performing students. Okay. Most American students are still performing below their pre-pandemic counterparts in reading and math, while the yawning gap between high-achieving and low-performing students got even wider, data from the nation's report card shows. Results released Wednesday from the 2024 National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is the NAEP, paint a sobering picture of academic haves and have-nots. Scores are increasing for many students who already do well, while struggling students stagnated or fell even further behind their peers. That's making a trend that began about a decade ago more pronounced. In some cases, that divide was historic. Lower performing 4th and 8th graders posted the worst reading scores in over 30 years.
I think that's probably what I was referring to. Yes.
Mm-hmm. In 8th grade math, the gap between the highest and lowest performing students was the widest in the test's history. The news is not good, the commissioner for the National Center for Education Statistics told reporters. Student achievement has not returned to pre-pandemic levels. Reading scores continue to decline, and our lowest performing students are not reading at are now reading at historically low levels.
So if you looked at the major cities in America, I bet you they make up a large portion of that because those were the schools that were closed the longest, and those are the teachers unions that demand the most funding. And when you read these stats to any of these teachers unions, what they'll tell you was, or they'll say, we just need more money. That'll fix the problem, right?
Mm-hmm. So I actually heard this from a teacher about 2 years ago that a lot of the kids who weren't doing well fell behind, and a lot of the kids that did do well brought their scores up and everything else, like post-pandemic. Um, Keeping in mind that since the Department of Education was instituted in 1980, the United States has fallen off an educational cliff compared to where we were. We were considered one of the top countries for education, and we no longer are. I think that's pre-secondary education, so college. People still come here to go to college, stuff like that. But yeah.
I mean, it's not like colleges are turning out people who are competent either. Like, it's out of control now. I think Trump passed a school choice executive order recently. It might have been yesterday. And I think that's kind of the only way out of it, is to increase the ability of parents to go elsewhere.
So you mentioned funding. Interestingly enough, in this article, it says the results are sure to fuel ongoing debate about whether schools are doing enough to help struggling students, especially those who are the farthest behind. The role that school closures played in exacerbating learning gaps, and whether schools effectively spent the nearly $190 billion they received in federal COVID relief dollars.
It's a lot of money, Brad.
Yes. So, question to you. That money likely went to the Department of Education.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
I don't know what the numbers are for the cost of the Department of Education on a yearly basis, but keeping in mind that whatever money the Department of Education does not go directly to schools. It gets funneled through the bureaucracy, and whatever comes out the other side is what schools get. So Trump wants to eliminate the Department of Education. I have not found one person who, one, knows what really the Department of Education does, and two, could actually tell me why it should exist and why we spend billions of dollars a year on the Department of Education when that money could go back to the schools.
Because it's always been there, right? Like they created it in like the 70s. It
hasn't always been there. It wasn't created until 1980.
Oh, it was 80 even? Okay.
I think it was 1980.
It might have been earlier, but...
So, well, no, I'm pretty sure it was 1980. But regardless,
way, yeah.
If we gave them 190 billion in COVID relief, and then whatever on top of that, the hundreds of billions of dollars I'm sure that they get every year, why should we keep them open?
I don't know. It's a good question. That's why DOJ should be focusing, like you have to go to the things that are broken. DOE's broken. Just is. We don't know what it does. We know it manages student loans, which is terrible.
It's funny because if you liken it to healthcare, right? People say we spend more per person in healthcare and have worse results. What the fuck do you think is happening with education?
It's like way worse.
It's the same thing. So like if you want to make that argument, fine. But then I'm going to make that argument for education and tell you that, okay, well, we spend all of this money on education. You want to get rid of private healthcare for a public option? I want to get rid of private education or public education because it's useless.
Well, you should school choice should be something that we embrace. And the only reason that it's not embraced is because the teachers unions are so powerful. They have so much money, and they're the ones who get every single politician elected, but they're also the ones who hate doing their job. So that's why, like in California, some school districts dropped standardized testing, and then you look at the results and you go, it didn't work. I mean, you're saying like there's lack of accountability. I would absolutely agree. Yeah. I don't know who's going to be held accountable for that, but I mean, I wouldn't send my kid to a public school if I could avoid, not my specific location where I am. It'd be fine probably. But like if I was in like San Diego or Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, I would not send my kid to a public school.
I agree.
I mean, they don't in New York. They don't even have the American flag in classrooms, dude. Like
they might now.
It's such a it's such a radicalized little factory pumping out these kids who may or may not be brainwashed depending on what they see on fucking TikTok or whatever. But yeah, they go out of school. They don't have any skills, and then they go to and nobody does what's it when you do a blue collar job at like a tech school? That's not encouraged. My president Mike Rowe would have been on the forefront of this. Maybe he should still be. They should probably nominate him to something. I don't know. I don't know how this is all going to get fixed.
Well, you're actually seeing university enrollment decline, and it has declined year over year. The younger generations are starting to go back into the trades, which is good because we need them. Because the people who did the trades before are getting older, and they're going to start selling their businesses or retiring. You need the younger people to come in and do the trades. It's widely considered that if you learn a trade, you can build yourself $1 million business within 3 years.
I 100% believe it. If I could go back, I would do HVAC. Like that's
100%.
But like I was part of that generation that you were part of, that where it was like you would go to college to get the degree, the education for something that isn't applicable to the real world. Not that my degree isn't applicable to the real world, but you know what I mean. Like,
right?
You would do it over if you could. I mean, maybe not you. Your field of work is very different from what mine was.
No, I would have done my undergrad in either what I do now or like accounting or something like that.
Yeah, but your skill set is needed, essential. Right. A lot of kids aren't going to have that, and I don't know what the reality is for those people when their student loans are probably going to be there forever now. They're not going anywhere now for sure.
Nope.
And that sucks. And I do understand how terrible that is because we both had student loans. Have them.
I get by. I get by.
But
that was my my 3 articles.
Well, that was very interesting. I knew 2 of the 3. I didn't know about the kangaroo. So that's great.
I'll find some different ones to keep it going.
I gotta tell you, like Australia, man, like it's wild that people. It's like a whole other world there. It's so like, weird.
You and I have that list of things to not do, such as go in the ocean. Go to Australia is likely making the list.
Well, everybody wants to go to Sydney and see the Opera House.
Sure.
It's all that other shit, though.
Bridge.
Yeah, right. Once you get out of that, it's like, man, like what?
It's the tarantulas in your shoes.
Spiders,
put them on. Snakes.
Fucking kangaroos fighting
kangaroos.
You. 6'2" kangaroo. Like, imagine that. What does that look like?
I'm 5'5", so
they've got a kangaroo in the Tekken series.
Right.
That's a kangaroo in a fighting game for a reason, Brad. He has boxing gloves and everything.
Remember the video of that guy punching the kangaroo?
Yeah, they were
literally just sat there, and the guy was like, "Oh shit!" and ran.
It was like attacking his dog. Like it was trying to pick up his dog or something, take it with him. And it's
had it in a headlock. It's beautiful.
Oh my god, what a crazy little country full of British prisoners. It was a prison colony. Of course, it's crazy there.
Of course.
And then you got the Aborigines who are like, the fuck are these guys doing here? Like, we know what to do here, but what are they doing here? Anyway. That's all very fascinating, Brad. Thank you very much for that. I don't have a show and tell, but I did get this Panthers hat, so.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't have one either. We'll get back to it.
But
I'll have different things since I'm going to Disney. My thing is I try to buy all the alcoholic beverages that have little
souvenirs.
Yeah. And that's the souvenirs I bring home.
Those drinks are awesome, by the way. I love when you send them because I'm like, wow, I can't believe that. And yeah, I went to the Panthers Kings game last week and that was pretty fun too.
Nice.
LA Live is a neat little place, but getting there is a pain in the ass. But once you're there, it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been going for a little bit. A little longer than expected. So I'll talk to you next time, sir.
All right. See you, buddy.
Bye, buddy.